Here, I'm going to dispatch the ambulance.
Please, a helicopter, please. We need an airlift, please.
The time for rescue to actually get the guy up there. So, I'll let you know. Your water right there, right?
I'm here tonight with retired police detective Lieutenant Andrew Baxter. He has almost 30 years of law enforcement and dispatch experience. I have been a dispatcher for about 8 years. I was a correctional officer before that, which has got to count for something, right?
Okay, so John, speaking, I wore a beach appropriate shirt this evening because we were amphibious as well.
Is that why you make me call you Magnum?
Yeah, John, that's one of the reasons, John. Don't want to go into the other. All right. Thank you for walking into that. Take a deep breath. Get something out of that beard.
No, I opened the door for that one. I loved it.
Yeah, I do too.
Anyway.
That's what she said, John.
Yes, go ahead with whatever that you're doing. We have sharks at some point.
Oh, sharks are the bees of the sea.
Yes, that was always going to get said. I was going to have a marine biologist come on and say that, so that it was scientifically durable. But he's at Busch Gardens with his family tonight, ignoring me. And, we've been friends since 1991. I've known him longer than his daughter and his wife, so I don't really know why I'm taking a back seat to those people.
That's true.
But this one goes out to Jason. I hope that you have a fun night, Busch Gardens, Williamsburg. All right, so guys, a couple months ago, I think this was in, I think it was in May. It was a couple months ago. A guy who was out there spearfishing at 70 feet of water with some buddies of his got attacked by a shark. And when medical emergencies happen, 911 is usually the answer to that. So we've got a 911 phone call. It's a brief footage, and we're going to talk about how 911 works for deep sea and water rescues. I, of course, living in the center of the continent, have a lot of experience with all the stuff that goes on in that water area, the ocean, the deep sea, estuaries, all that good stuff. So, Drew, hopefully, being a dispatcher in Hillsborough County, hopefully you've got a preloaded and ready to fire right now story of deep sea water
I do,
rescue.
and it's not funny. I do. I have a few. So yeah, fire away, my man. Let's talk about sharks. Let's get into this. Let's talk about sharks.
Okay,
let's talk about. What are we going to do first?
Sharks.
So, okay, I thought spoiler alert.
I thought that you were going to tell a story. I mean, I could tell you a story about the time when we got a call about a cow, but it turned out to be a buffalo. They're kind of the sharks of the prairie.
They are. Well, are they? I mean,
no, they're very gentle.
Yeah, they're not. They're very docile. At any rate, water rescues are very problematic and troublesome for us. First of all, we have this large bridge that connects Hillsborough County with Manatee County, and it's called the Sunshine Skyway Bridge. So a few years back, like the late 70s, a few decades back actually, there was a large ship that was traveling, and it was foggy, and it ran everybody's worst nightmare. It ran into the bridge, and all of the cars started, they didn't make it across the bridge. Because this thing took out the huge part of the center span, and there was a huge bus that full of people, because people used to travel by bus quite frequently back then, and there were still, when I was working, there were still plenty of guys that were there. You know what I mean? I was on what we used to call the dive team, and and the name of the bus company, by the way, the first thing they said, this is how media savvy everybody was even back then. The first thing that the bus company wanted was for someone to take a tarp or spray paint down and spray over their name. They didn't want people to know that it was their bus line. Pretty sure it was Trailways. But so that's the disaster of the Sunshine Skyway. So the reason I'm telling you that is because there's a lot of open waters here. There's a big channel here that handles cruise ships, but there's also a lot of recreational boating here in Florida. And it's difficult when you dial 911 when you're having an emergency in the middle of the water, because there aren't many cell towers, and wherever the cell towers are, wherever that signal carries you is where that call is going to come in. So sometimes it's very difficult to locate where you are to get rescue to you. But if you ever go to the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office website, there are some very dramatic rescues that have been done by our air unit, by our Marine unit. We where I used to work, they have a full Marine unit with, like, government, federal government funded boats and man, a lot of toys there. But it's all done in the name of safety and boater safety and the protection of the area around MacDill Air Force Base and such. But if you ever go to the website, you'll see quite a few in the press releases. We get water rescues all the time. It's a very harrowing experience when you're out in the water and you're taking on water and you're calling 911. You don't know where the 911 call is going to end up. And Tampa Fire Rescue, Hillsborough County Fire Rescue, and Tampa Police. We all have our own assets to get out there to help people. The Coast Guard, we work hand in hand with them. So, generally, that's kind of what happens in a water rescue here. They tend to be pretty dramatic.
I would say something that would frustrate me as someone who has no experience with this at all. Is that I'm a cross streets guy. Like where I live, if you wanted to look at a map of my state for road maps, it would look like a piece of graph paper. Like every mile we have a road that goes straight north and straight south and straight east and straight west, right? So like in some ways I'm almost like in the bush league of 911 dispatching, because like people can only go one of the 4 cardinal directions, and every mile I've marked them off to where they are in the state. Like our rural system for addressing is basically like a galactic coordinate system. Like I know someone could give me an address and I know pretty much where they are in the state. So all of a sudden you're talking about like, yeah, I'm out in the end of the earth sun now, and it would be
like I fell asleep for 10 minutes. I don't know which direction I'm headed.
But
the sun is up. Like I just know that the sun is up. That must be north.
I can't even imagine, like if you're not sure if it's 11 a.m. or 1 p.m. like I would be destined to die at sea. Okay, but luckily these callers are smart enough. These callers on this boat, first of all, they did a great job of helping save their friend, as did the 911 dispatcher. But they have something that's pretty critical and something that's universally helpful, something that even I can use. And that, of course, is GPS coordinates. They're able to read those off, and I assume that they have stuff that's on the boat, their navigation system on the boat, that's probably a little bit more robust and reliable than whatever's on their cell phone. But they use that during the course of this call, and so I viewed that as tremendously helpful.
I did have a.
This is why we're doing sharks. Okay, I've had a very stressful week. This was Independence Day. July 4th is like the worst time for 911 dispatchers.
Yes,
people are blowing themselves up. Someone shot fireworks into their eye while I was working. People will call and scream and just say, "There's fireworks going on." And they're screaming so loud that your phone breaks from how loud they're screaming. And you're just like, they're illegal. There's nothing you could do.
Yeah.
And all these people calling up saying, "Oh, they're having a good time. I want you to tell them to stop." I'm like, you're like a commie or something. Like, who else had a problem with our fireworks? King George III. And how did that work out for that guy? So sorry that we're still rambling at like 48 minutes, but like I am blowing off steam. This is my court-appointed therapy. I'm sorry that you guys all have to hear this, but this is why we're doing sharks. Anyway, back to sharks, away from iPhones and everything else. I'm just going to play the 911 audio, and I guess, Drew, you jump in there whenever you want to say something interesting, because I think you're kind of more the expert on water stuff. Here we go. Here's 911 from, I believe it was, the guy was from Miami-Dade, but Marathon Fire Rescue is what ends up showing up. So hopefully those sound familiar to you, because I've never heard of Miami or Marathon. Here we go.
911, what's the address of your emergency?
Hi. I'm shark attack outside of Marathon.
Okay, where exactly are you?
Give the coordinates. Okay. We need an air rescue, please. It's really bad.
Okay, where in Marathon are you, sir?
Dude, how do I see where I am? Here on the screen. Where do I see where I am? Come on. Hurry up, Danny.
Are you by Boot Key?
Sombrero. Please, as fast as you can. He's bleeding really bad.
Okay, give me 1 second, sir. I'm gonna dispatch the ambulance.
Please, a helicopter. Please, we need an airlift. Please.
Drew, what are your initial thoughts on this? I think that she thought that they were near Bootleg Key based on maybe their cell phone or something. They did give them coordinates, which I think were redacted or just truncated from this call. But that's pretty scary. You know, these guys were 70 feet underwater. They're out there spearfishing, and they see their buddy basically get bitten in the leg by a bull shark. He lets out all of his air because he's screaming. They're like I said, they're 70 feet underwater. They grab him in the armpits and they take him up to the boat. Well, the fight for survival has only just begun because now he's up on the boat. You know, being on the leg is not a safe place to be bitten. You know, nowhere is with a shark, but the femoral artery obviously is a huge concern. They were concerned that he had some arterial bleeding because of the amount of blood that was coming out in the water. The old wives' tale definitely goes that, you know, that sharks can smell blood. Maybe it's a scientific fact. I did try to get a marine biologist here, but that has got to be terrifying being 7 stories underwater when your friend's bitten by a shark.
The problem with being that far down or that far out in the water is rescue is not, you know, it's not your it's not at your immediate fingertips. It's so obviously getting the coordinates is very important. I think a lot of times, especially in a situation like this, they'll probably work in conjunction with the U.S. Coast Guard. They'll probably transfer that information to them, and maybe they'll fly out there to where they are, or you know, some of their go fast boats or whatever. But
that's not what ends up happening in this case. But I'm sure, like depending on where you're at and the size of boat that you're on, that maybe that would be the case. If they were on a big commercial boat, or maybe even something with a helipad, I could see them definitely doing that. But these guys are on
no, they don't. Now the Coast Guard does not need to land to rescue.
Oh, they got that hover thing. Nice.
Yep, they got like pararescue. So
and then they got Kevin Costner, who jumps out with that red surfboard thing.
Generally,
okay.
Yeah. What movie was that? Is that Yellowstone?
It was Kevin Costner saves Ashton Kutcher in the north in the Arctic Ocean. I think that was the name of the movie. Yeah, The Guardian is what it was, actually. I believe
it wasn't Waterworld. That's where they put the presidential masks on and they robbed the bank.
Yeah, that was in the second half of that movie. Yeah, and then
I fell asleep.
There was like, yeah, there was then all of a sudden he was like Superman's dad. So I don't know what went on there. I haven't watched a lot of Kevin Costner movies, but I probably need to watch some more because I think he's
very handsome in his Navy uniform, though. So anyway. So
who's the hunt for Red October? Lumber Chef says. Thank you.
Oh,
Lumber.
thank you, Chef.
Appreciate that.
So here we go. I mean, water rescue is problematic to begin with because of trying to figure out the location. Trying to hold a cell signal is also problematic when you're out in the water like that. Usually, that's why they require that VHF or UHF shortwave or whatever it is radio that's on your boat. It's one of the safety. It's one of the safety checklist items. And that's the extent of my boating knowledge. That in the life.
I assume you would say Mayday, and then you'd flip on a transponder, and then Kevin Costner would jump out of a helicopter to save you. I'm sure it's that simple,
right on in. Yeah, you just put on the air brakes and they fly right by you.
My point is this is real life and not a movie. So this is how you're going to see someone rescued at sea. If you're ready, Drew, we'll keep going.
Go for it.
All right.
Please, take all your weight, girl. Take all your weight.
Where's he bleeding from?
He's bleeding from his thigh. It's a really big
From
gap.
his side. All right. I need you to take a clean towel and apply direct pressure to the wound.
Don't
If
apply
it
direct
keeps
pressure to the
bleeding,
wound.
I need you to put another towel, T-shirt, whatever, over the top of it.
Here. Where? Over.
So that's basic bleeding control. Dispatchers, she's probably just going straight from the manual on that. We tell people to apply direct pressure. Don't lift bandages or whatever it is that you're using to put pressure on there. Drew, go ahead.
It's important to repeat the instructions sometimes because I think what he said was don't put direct pressure on the wound right after she said it. So you may want to repeat.
Well, because it hurts. Yeah. Ooh, it stings. You know, don't touch that.
Right. I would think. Plus the salt water. So maybe you should cover protocols, John. Like I think depending on what kind of center the 911 call lands in, if it's like a EMS dispatch or EMS fire situation, they literally have on their screens in front of them like it goes to this screen and this screen, and then they just start reading off what you need to do, and it's just a
I could tell you all about that. Back in the day when you used to have services separated, where you would call the fire station for a fire truck, or you would call the ambulance for an ambulance, you would call the police for a police car. Things used to be very separated. This was back in even into the 90s. And we would have cases where, and I should get you the audio for this. I could actually go and get it. But someone is calling because they have a medical emergency. I think it might be a severe bleeding. It was a CPR call, which of course is the most dangerous kind, because if someone's not breathing, how long can they hold their breath, is the famous saying. So they call and they get a police dispatcher and they say, like, this person's not breathing. What do I do? And the dispatcher says, I don't know, ma'am. I'm a police dispatcher. And this goes on and on and on and on. And she goes, please just tell us what to do. And the police dispatcher, again, this is back in the day, she goes, I have no idea. Ma'am, I'm a police dispatcher. And she just keeps saying that over and over again, as if that gets her off the hook. I think we know today that we expect more from our telecommunicators or dispatcher professionals. So what we have now is a unified approach. Agencies what they do is they get a third party. So there's Pro Q&A, there's PowerPhone, there's other things out there. And the reason why they do this is it's a liability thing. So if you're going by the procedure that's given to you by Pro Q&A or by PowerPhone, if there's a problem with that procedure, the liability goes to PowerPhone or Pro Q&A. And of course, they have their money and they have their insurance and things like that. But an agency will do that to take the liability off of their own agency. So when a dispatcher gives pre-arrival instructions, or emergency medical dispatch is what we call it, that we go through a uniform procedure that's not just someone making up something. Oh, well, this is a good idea, throw baking soda on that fire, suck venom out of that wound. These are things that could, potentially go wrong if you get them wrong. You get your 911 dispatcher in trouble for giving bad advice. You get your agency in trouble. That's how lawsuits are formed. So what happened was all these agencies realized they needed, there was a need out there for a uniform way to give pre-arrival instructions in emergency medical dispatch, whether that was how to deliver a baby, how to give CPR instructions, how to give first aid to a burn. There's 100 protocols in there. How to talk to suicidal people, how to take care of a hostage situation, a psychiatric behavioral thing, lacerations, bleeding. And when a dispatcher starts a call for service type, they'll be able to navigate through some of those things, and they'll even be able to get different advisories. Like if I was going to start a call for service and it was a chest pain thing, I might ask them if they are on any kind of blood thinners, if their doctors advise them to take aspirin, and then I would be able to talk them through, like, okay, maybe you need to take a baby aspirin, which is 81 milligrams of aspirin, which is something that you would use in a case like that. So this is all on the computer, or if your computer breaks, we do have a whole, it's almost like a Rolodex of cards that you would use in a situation like that. It used to be back in the day that all dispatch was cards and things like that. And we had index cards, of course, for calls for service, kind of back in your day. But so what's happening is she's realizing she's got profuse bleeding on. This is a Marine rescue. But she's doing now 2 calls at once. She's got a Marine rescue because someone out there needs to be taken from a boat. She's also got someone with obviously serious lacerations, traumatic injuries.
Right.
And she's just giving basic directions on how to stop profuse bleeding. It's not full first aid at this point. It's not about, antiseptic care or anything like that. It's about stabilizing a patient until someone with a higher level of care can get there. Drew.
Yeah, it is. It's stabilization. Like she's not talking about getting Bactine on it.
Yeah. But sometimes you'll do calls and it's multiple things at once. Like if you have someone get shot, well, you've got a weapons violation. You've got suspect protocols where you're trying to gather descriptions of persons, last known direction of travel.
Great
but
point.
you're also giving wound care and things like that. The classic example of having to do just a lot of things at once is an injury car accident where you might have gasoline leaking from a vehicle. So you've got to have a procedure there for dispatching fire. You've got,
a neck injury,
injuries, spinal stuff going on, patients who are ejected, patients who are trapped. And of course, you've got to get law enforcement going. If, one of the vehicles leaves the scene, you've got a whole protocol for,
traffic control
vehicle
in general,
descriptions. So anyway, you could take a 911 call and it's actually several calls rolled together. And that's kind of where the emergency medical dispatch or the procedures have come from. It's to make it, number one, easier for you, but most of all, It's to limit that liability. I've seen a lot of dispatchers who kind of just kind of go off the book on this, and they're kind of like giving questionable advice. I'm like, man, if this goes the wrong way, like you are going to get sued. And I don't know why you don't just read from the card, because as long as you're using, common sense,
Yeah,
like,
you're set.
you're not asking, for example, a male patient, if there's any possibility with his abdominal pain that he's pregnant, that as long as you're using common sense and using the card, you can get through those expeditiously, and they can help you quite a bit too. They can really increase your patient care. Go ahead, Drew.
Yeah, I know that you have told many a caller to empty out an ink pen in case they needed to do a trach.
Oh, emergency tracheotomies, you do those in about a third of all 911 calls. And then, of course, everybody, I don't know why is, everybody's really jonesing to do a tourniquet. Like someone would be like, my finger's off. I cut off my finger in the meat slicer. I'll take off my belt and tie it around my upper arm. Like,
well, right. I did see that you received a call on 4th of July where they're like, I think I just blew my hand off, to which I said to you, you should have just simply replied, well, how are you holding the phone? Because this could be a fake call. Go ahead, John, finish up.
The call with the arm off was, no, that wasn't real.
I know.
I don't want to dig in too deep on the
isn't real.
Well, it's it's an acquired taste, and I'm acquiring it slowly and contractually. I'm required to acquire it. but anyway, we could go on with this 911 call. Let's do it.
The top of it.
Just keep piling them on.
Please send a helicopter. He's leaving.
We're doing that. Hold on.
Right. Right now on my phone. I don't show what the. What's your password? What's your password?
Scar Technical West Command Center. This is Mr. Wheatley.
Hi, I need a chopper. I need a chopper. Shark attack. I need a chopper.
Sir, hold on and let me talk. We have a water emergency off of.
Okay, so what's going on here is the call is actually being what we call warm or hot transferred or live transferred, I presume, to a helicopter dispatcher. We've covered transfers before on this show and how difficult they are. Even if you're just trying to transfer a call to a neighboring agency because they have the asset you need, whether that's an ambulance or whatever, or you just got the call by mistake. When people dial 911, they're all keyed up. Excuse me. They definitely want to tell you the story of what happened before they will tell you where they're at. Sometimes on this show, if you've ever heard someone say 911, what is the address of your emergency? It's because that dispatcher is so sick of hearing people say, my backyard, my bathroom, my house. So this guy he's all keyed up. You can hear that he knows that someone else is coming on the line, and he's just saying shark attack, shark attack, shark attack. He's kind of code 0, code black. He's just trying to say what's happening. And the first dispatcher is trying to tell the dispatcher for the helicopter, hey, I'm transferring you a caller who has live patient information that we need to relay to the paramedics or whoever your technicians are on the helicopter. And we're going to try to find a way to get a helicopter in this boat to meet up. Drew, go ahead.
I do get that his freak out level. I mean, you're in the middle of the ocean and you're watching your buddy bleed out, essentially. And, he's probably mumbling things to you like, tell my wife I love her or whatever. I mean, like, I'm not even joking. I mean, just, the dude lost a leg and there's a shark running around with a foot in its mouth. And I can understand why that's a kind of a freak out moment. But at the same time, the dispatcher is trying to get information out of him. And just so we're clear, John, who talked about the live transfer, those are amongst the most painful ones to listen to, because you up front get all of their information and what's going on. Then you're going to transfer that person to a medical official of some sort, and they are going to start the whole process over again. What number are you calling from? What address are you calling from? I just effing said that, and they're just going to start arguing with them, but they have their own protocols to follow. And it's seconds, sometimes minutes, it seems like, before they start getting into what is actually needed to help save them. Go, Johnny.
It's just frustrating because, if I get that information, I tell them, like, listen, it's going to sound like you're starting over, but you're not. So to go faster, let me tell them everything you've already told me. Like, you sit this play out. I got this from here, Chief. And sometimes they listen, and sometimes when they're this keyed up, they don't. They just hear someone else saying, hey, what's going on? And then it's just shark attack, shark attack, shark attack, which if you viewed your friend being eaten by a bull shark, I get that he's upset. We'll keep going.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm thinking he's thinking the first one doesn't know what she's doing. You know what I mean? Like that's
Well,
his kind of
there's
his tone.
that, but there's that she doesn't know what she's doing, but also just that you know, he's just hit reset, like a big reset button, and he's just going
True.
again. Here we go.
All right.
Marathon, I can give you the GPS of the caller when you're ready.
Can I say the coordinates? Yep, go ahead.
Go ahead.
North.
What, you have a geographical
right to the
reference?
side.
Say that again, sir?
He is
Shark bite to the
oceanside
side.
of
Shark bite to the side, okay.
Please, it's really bad. There's a lot of blood, please. I need a helicopter, please.
How close are you to land?
I'm not that far at all. Probably 2 or 3 miles.
And what do you...
I need. He's off of Sombrero Beach.
We're in a 24 regulator with twin Yamahas.
24-foot regulator.
24-foot yellow regulator with
Yellow.
Yamahas.
Twins, okay. How old is the guy?
How long is it going to take for you guys to get here?
Hold on, sir. It's going to take a little bit. I need some more information from you. Are you guys making way, or are you guys stopped?
Oh my God!
You guys,
Again, that's a classic 911 call. How long is it going to take for you guys to get here? They've only been on the phone for 1 or 2 minutes, and they're asking to be rescued on a boat. You know, it's not reasonable to expect that to happen in anything, you know, less than 20, 30 minutes. And you'll find that by the time they finally have patient contact with the paramedics, that has been about 20 minutes since this guy was bitten, which I think is a fantastic response time. They said they were 2 or 3 miles from land. He's going to start making waves for a nearby marina, and they're going to try to figure out where they can get an ALS to intercept him. Drew, go ahead.
No, that's it. Go.
Let's play it.
need to start headed towards land.
They are headed towards land.
I'm telling them they need to head towards land. Yes.
Okay, come on.
I got you on board the boat.
Talk to him.
Sir.
I just spoke.
Do you have the phone number for these guys?
Bro, grab this. Daniel, get my phone right here. Get my phone. Get it. Talk to him.
Sir, is he on board the boat?
What the Hello?
Yes. He's on board the boat.
The person is on board the boat. Okay.
Whoever is on the phone, I need to know what marina you are heading into.
Drew, do you have a policy there at Hillsborough County about transferring a call and staying on the line? Because I'm just wondering if you have thoughts about that.
You mean the call? Wait, who's staying on the line?
So you have the 911 dispatcher takes the call from the reporting party. She transfers the call to the helicopter dispatcher. She's still on the line though, so now you essentially have 2 dispatchers talking to this guy. You have the helicopter
That's
guy.
confusing.
And
yeah,
then,
it is a handoff. I get what you're saying, and I don't think it's taught. It's nuanced. I don't think it's like in procedure, but when you determine it's a medical emergency and you notify the medical people, it's the medical's turn to talk.
yeah.
It's just that every once in a while there might be something that you can glean out of that as a dispatcher that you're kind of like, wait, did he just say his sister has the gun? You know, stuff like that. But once they're in their medical protocol, it's their, you know, you're basically in the operating room. You're a guest. Right?
I will passively glean sometimes, like if a call is complicated or especially dangerous, or if we're sharing jurisdiction with someone else, I'll stay on and listen sometimes. I've had to interrupt before where it's like, oh shit, they're in an apartment complex. And I'm like, can we get in from the outside, or what's the code to get in? And I've had to interrupt a dispatcher at another agency to say, what's that code to get in? Can they get in from the outside? And that's against protocol. It's annoying. It slows things down sometimes. But sometimes you have to do those things. When you make those mistakes, you have to fix them. And sometimes that can get complicated and ugly. And so now you have this first dispatcher who sounds like she just really needs a cigarette break. And she goes, whoever's on the phone, I need to know what marina you're going to. And so they're going to try to send an ambulance to that marina. Anything else, Drew, or we'll keep going?
Great question. Do you think police, from somebody named Christy, I don't know if you know her or not. Do you think police dramas contribute to to people's unrealistic expectations for dispatchers and response times? And the answer is absolutely yes. I mean, most of those shows are 30 minutes long. So the response time is like 12 or 14 seconds. Right.
When I was in college, they would talk about how juror expectations were being changed by shows by CSI.
Yeah.
So you would expect to go into a trial and you would expect to see this like high concept, high science stuff that would help you understand why someone's guilty of a
Enhance.
crime. Enhance, right. So we're seeing the same thing with these shows now, you know, whether it's 911, 911 Lone Star and all this, and you see all these exceptional abilities and exceptional people doing all these amazing things. And it is causing a problem. Now, we didn't used to have a 911 show for a long time. We used to have one called Rescue 911 with William Shatner. That was one of the original reality TV shows that I used to watch when I was a little kid. But now I for the first time recently, I actually had someone kind of confront me on that. We had a traffic problem where they stopped on a major road because they had a beef with another driver. So you've got a road rage incident. They're both on a major highway. They're both going to stop and have it out. I'm not positive where they're at because I'm getting conflicting ideas like, we're on this road. I'm like, that road's nowhere near here. It's not even in this county. And they're like, well, it's when you turn on this thing and I'm by this. I'm like, can you just look around you and see if there's a building or something? And she goes, well, don't you know where I am? I'm like, no, I'm sorry, I don't. Can you help me? And she goes, well, you're supposed to know where I am. You're a 911 dispatcher. And I wanted to be like, you know what? I am a 911 dispatcher, but I'm not God. So why don't you look around you and tell me where you're at? Because you're there. If you're there and you don't know where you are, how the hell am I supposed to know where you are? Now, this is different for these guys on the boat because they're on the ocean, okay? There's not a lot of landmarks out there at sea. This guy's doing a good job saying he's near Sombrero Key or Boot Key or whatever. So I'm not criticizing these guys. But I almost wonder if that was someone who's seen that Halle Berry movie or seen Rob Lowe running around looking sexy or whatever happens on that show that I've never even watched one time. And they're like, well, don't you have a live satellite feed of what's going on here? It's just super frustrating, the role that technology as it's portrayed on TV, with all of a sudden when someone runs a driver's license, it's a picture of the actual license. It has all this wonderful plot advancing information on it. Real life's not like that. And we're seeing that kind of bleed into 911 real life. So that's a great question.
Tactical, we'll get into it in a minute. There are methods of tracking phones, but it's not as readily apparent as everybody thinks it is. Go ahead.
We can get into that now if you want, or we'll just keep going.
Oh yeah, go for it then.
So your phone, when you dial 911, this is a major difference between dialing 911 and dialing just the non-emergency number. Is when you dial 911, your phone will send me what we call ALI, automatic location information. It sends me your GPS coordinates to the extent that your phone can do that. It's gotten a lot better over the years. Sometimes, like, I'll have a really good idea of where you're at. Sometimes I don't. And it's like, again, it's easy for me because if I know you were driving a car and you were in a car accident and my phone shows you in the middle of a field, well, there's a good chance that, given the uncertainty of this, they're most likely on this road near this intersection. If you're out in the ocean, if you're in a big city, those things can be helpful, but they're not always very good. We can do something what we call rebidding, where I ask the phone again to update the information, send that information to me again if they're moving, or if they can just send me better information the second time. They can give me that information and I can update my call for service and I can see that plotted on my map. And sometimes we can get information that way, but it's not always very good. If you're talking about trying to ping a phone for someone who's not on a 911 call with you, that's a whole other different process. I think that's what Drew was alluding to. So we'll keep going.
We're right off Sombrero. I don't know what the marina is called. We're heading into Sombrero, from Sombrero.
Okay, how long would it take you to get there?
10 minutes.
10 minutes? Okay.
Yes.
How many people are on your boat? Go ahead and start making way if you can.
Yes, we're making way.
Okay, what speed are you going?
I'm going to start going 30 miles an hour now, 35.
Okay, do you have a marina that you're going to go to?
I see the 7 Mile Bridge. I'm going to go to
Go to 7 Mile Grill. Go to the 7 Mile Grill, Sunset Grill, right there at the 7 Mile Bridge, and I walk.
So the dispatcher here has gotten some sort of dead reckoning that they're kind of in the vicinity of this bridge, which happens to share the name as, I assume, a beachfront restaurant. And she's kind of taking some initiative here to say, okay, we have an idea that this is where you're at. Rather than trying to make sure our paramedic unit can come right to where you are, let's go to a mutually agreed upon place, this restaurant. Hopefully they know it. Hopefully it's well known in the area. And if they can see that place, then they know exactly where to go. The ambulance can be parked right outside there. Drew, anything before I keep going?
Remind me to talk about CETO in a minute, but keep going.
I will try to remember CETO.
Have the ambulance meet you there.
Right on the left, on the east side. Okay, yep. You're going to coordinate, ma'am, EMS to meet him there?
Yes.
Do you have any information about the guy? Do we know
All right, I'm getting an ambulance dispatched out there. I have to hang up. I'm on my main radio.
Okay, I'll keep them on. Can we see if they can stay on the line? Sir,
Okay.
Still there?
Me disconnecting, you should still stay on.
Okay, thank you.
Now, who knows if that happened or not, because that's the end of our
Right.
audio. I can tell you right now that sometimes when I have to transfer calls, we have had multiple phone
It cuts
providers
off.
over the years, and the technology is different every time they switch out the phone. So I've had it before where they say, well, you can live transfer this and you'll both remain on the call. And now transfer it. I'm like, oh, well, they're gone now. So I needed several more things that I was hoping to glean, and now it's lost to God forever. So I have to call that agency separately to get that information. And then worst of all yet is the case where you're doing what we call a conference or a bridge, where someone's calling you and then you're directing that call. It's like three-way conferencing to someone else. And then you don't want to be there anymore because, like, say you have to run your main radio or something, or just answer other 911 calls. And you're like, I'm out, and you just want to put them together, but then you hang up and then they're mutually disconnected. So sometimes, like when she says, you guys should still be able to stay on the line, she's couching and I'm like, here goes nothing, and she's had to get the phone because she's got to go.
She's literally rolling the dice.
Abby,
All right,
we're
go.
not going to say what happened to the patient. We don't do that here on Comm Center.
I thought she was talking about the shark anyway, but keep going.
We're going to discuss, what we think is appropriate punishment for the bull shark. But Drew, you wanted to say something about CETO.
It's not appropriate yet.
Okay, sorry. I don't even know what the hell it is, so I won't ask.
Yeah, I know.
I assume it's some kind of Florida thing. We'll keep going.
Just keep going.
Here we go. 3, 2, 1. We're going to watch the video of Marathon EMS coming to get the patient. So they're out there on a dock.
Yeah.
Paramedics have got him loaded up. The boat's there.
Yeah. I mean, not right this second. They just went in the air, so we got at least 3 minutes. Yeah, 2 to 3 and minutes. Then the time for rescue to actually get the guy up there. So, I'll let you know.
Gonna meet you at the hospital. There's your water right there, right?
Color not looking good, but.
So how did this happen?
It's a short bite.
Cabrera, we were diving in 70 feet. He shot a Cabrera on the bottom, and then we assessed the situation. We agreed that we were all going to go down and try to get it together, all 3 of us. And so he was on shark duty. He couldn't do it. I'm not blaming him at all. He was on shark duty. I was just hovering over them, and Kevin was in the hole trying to work it out. Mm-hmm. And the shark, we had seen it before. He came around and just bit him in the leg twice.
Okay. Whose boat? His. Okay. It happens, man.
He got bit 70 feet down. And
yeah, that's a lot of work.
Did you guys see the cut good?
I don't know that it's that bad, but I mean,
the gash is probably this fat and this long, plus multiple other little gashes all around. He definitely got bit. An artery broke or something because he was squirting. Dude, I was right next to him when he got bit.
Okay, so that's the end of that. The patient, of course, he survived. He's doing okay. He has they believe he had to have 2 operations or 2 procedures. He's going to have to go through a lot of therapy, but he says he can't wait to get back in the water like a consummate Florida man. Just can't wait to throw himself back into a big pit of danger. So we're glad that he was able to survive. You could hear the person on the boat there was extremely worried that he had arterial bleeding. To be honest, I doubt that he had an artery puncture in this, because I don't think that he would have made it after 20 minutes, especially when the first part of that was 70 feet under the water.
Shark's teeth have a quick clot,
like a lightsaber. Yeah. So did you? So talk about this.
Okay.
So
CETO
sea lift thing.
CETO is an ethical dilemma, in my opinion. CETO is a company just like AAA, except it's for the sea. And not CAA, which is the Canadian Automobile Association. That was last week. CETO, SEATOW, is when somebody calls 911 from the middle of an ocean, basically, and says, hey, we broke down, we need help. You got to flip a coin here. Do you really need help because you broke down, or do you just need a tow in? In other words, are we going to call out the cavalry for you because you ran out of gas. Because if you do that on the highway, it may be a little bit easier to get to you, but so there is this ethical thought too that, well, we're not into creating victims either. So when we know somebody is stranded in the middle of the ocean, we can't just disregard them. But we were in the process of looking at, before I was removed from my position, by the way, we were in the process of looking at, do we transfer them to CTO when we know that it's just a mechanical issue, or are we responsible for responding out there? And again, this is an ethical or moral debate. There's a lot of, fuel's expensive. There's a lot of taxpayer a medical emergency, but we're not a towing service. So even if you broke down on the side of the road, as a courtesy, a deputy sheriff might, stand by while we call a tow truck for you or whatever, but the tow truck's doing all the work. We're not doing that. We're there for visibility, basically. So when it's in the sea, I mean, it's a little bit different, I think. Depends on the situation and the weather and whatnot, but do you call? Do you just transfer them, or do you stay on the line with them, or do you send our own boats and helicopters out there to save them?
Well, it's a similar situation to what we see here every single winter. We get people stranded out there in sub-zero and dangerous conditions, and what they're essentially asking for is to be winched out of a ditch, and they'll dial 911 for that. I'm like, well, I don't have the personnel or the equipment to do that. What you're asking for is a third party and a commercial enterprise at that. And then it's like, well, who do you think I should call? Well, now if I tell them my favorite tow company or whatever, it's like, now it's like almost like, is this a kickback situation? So we usually will have a duty tow where it's on a calendar saying, well, who will go in this situation? And sometimes it'll be like, well, who's most likely to reach you in a fast time frame for where you're at, depending on what the conditions are like. But we get to a point sometimes where tow trucks don't go, of course. We have a winter weather advisory or whatever, and even deputies won't go because we don't trade lives, right? So deputies not necessarily going to go out and risk his life to save you. And I've had to leave people, to their elements out there. The ocean's a little bit more of a certain death situation. I think if you're in a car, there's a chance maybe that you could kind of huddle up for warmth and kind of get through it. But the sea, you're not necessarily coming back from that.
You're gonna give us a chunk of that?
And it's just like and it's the same thing with OnStar too, where I've seen people say, what's the advantage to this, to just calling 911? Isn't it faster to dial 911? And this was on like a social media page, and OnStar had the fucking audacity to say, well, we expedite the process by calling the police directly. We skip 911 and just call the police. Like if you've got a burglary in your house. That's a fucking lie. First of all, I don't know why. Like, tell me how OnStar has like the personal duty cell phones of the police officer closest to your house.
Yeah.
That's an audacious, terrible lie that OnStar is telling you. The only time OnStar has ever done anything was this case. I took a call from a GM vehicle saying that they had been in a crash, like that iPhone. Well, this guy was having problems at home, and he got super drunk, and he went at high speed down the highway, and he went onto a field approach, and he vaulted his truck up into the air, and the truck did barrel rolls, and hundreds of guns came raining down like frogs in the Old Testament. The truck came down on top of him and killed him. But the only way I know that had happened, because it was out in the middle of the countryside, was because the GM called 911 OnStar on there. So there was nothing I could do for that poor guy, unfortunately. There's a case of OnStar succeeding. Other than that, like if you're in a crash and you're okay, you're conscious, alert, breathing, don't reach up here and hit the OnStar button. Like, just dial 911. I've had it so many times when I'm talking to OnStar dispatchers. I'm like, can you just put the person on the line? Let's get to this last piece of technology. Let's do it. Drew, did you want to talk about this since this was your idea?
No.
Okay.
Let's just watch it real quick.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I got what you're saying. Yeah. Okay, so this is a Walton County Sheriff's Office dispatcher using new video streaming technology to help recover a stranded boater in the
Chattahoochee Bay, which is
Chattahoochee Bay. Chattahoochee Bay.
Chattahoochee.
Billy Joe McAllister jumped off the Chattahoochee Bay.
So dispatcher Heather Mayo took the call.
What's the address of the emergency?
Hi, I'm Breasy. We're out in the water right off of Dolphin Cove. My husband fell in the water off the boat. He's kind of trying to reach the life jacket, but the boat is risky.
Okay, so 911 caller says my husband fell off the boat and I can't go get him. Go ahead. Drew.
Okay, so this says that using rapid deploy, Mayo is able to locate the caller's position in the bay. So there are programs that are emerging with this technology. In fact, some of your updates from on your iPhone or on your Google phone or whatever you have were specifically covering the new kind of GPS tracking technology, and there were tech people that were urging you to shut this off and shut that off. And I get that you don't want Google tracking where you are, but it was also important for 911, especially in instances like this. And we've kind of covered it before. I mean, Rapid SOS is one of the vendors. I guess Rapid Deploy might be a subsidiary, or maybe it's its own. But they're able to pinpoint your location via GPS, like pinpoint. The only thing that they're still having trouble with is elevation. So think about being in Raymond James Stadium, like a stadium with 50,000 people. The Buccaneers are beating the Cowboys.
AT&T Stadium, an even bigger stadium.
The Buccaneers are beating the Cowboys 42-10.
And so it's purely hypothetical now. So
you dial 911 from your phone. Theoretically, this Rapid SOS can locate you by your phone. Essentially where you are near the field or on the field, but it's going to have trouble figuring out if you're in the upper deck or in the lower deck. Elevations are difficult to figure out. So, but this is the greatest instance of this. Like when you're out on a boat and your stuff goes wacky or haywire. Boom, all of a sudden they have your exact location and they can get help to you a lot quicker.
So that's helpful knowing that they're out here in the bay. Maybe they have this is an extra resource that the last caller didn't have, but we're going to go a step beyond this with this rapid deploy.
Okay, do you see the text message? Perfect. I see the boat. Okay.
The caller is able to restart the boat and Mayo assists with her mapping technology to get her back to her husband.
It wasn't just that. She helped her restart the boat. Basically, the dispatcher sent her a link. It's almost like a StreamYard link, like if you wanted to have someone be a guest on the show. So you send them a link, and it basically gives your phone permission to send them GPS coordinates, which we can do with our CAD system. We don't personally have that technology at my agency, but it does exist as part of that CAD. You can essentially text someone a link, because with our CAD that we dispatch with, we can send text messages with that. Sends them a link, they click on it, they click accept, then we can access, whatever onboard technology is on their phone. Okay, we already talked about accessing the GPS, but this dispatcher was able to access the camera, and she was able to help this woman restart the boat so she could go out there and get her husband, who was being taken out there in the undertow. It's absolutely incredible. She's lucky she got a 911 dispatcher who knows how to start a boat. If she got me, she would get grief counseling on what to do since her husband's floating away. Because that's all I would have been able to offer. I don't know much about boats. Drew, go ahead.
Okay, so just as a tease, we'll cover it in another episode because we've talked about it in previous episodes. This is the next gen 911. This is what's coming. The ability to text, the ability to send photographs and live video. The problem is we haven't even kept up with the technology as far as dispatchers getting resiliency training or trauma training, being trauma informed when they're listening to a 911 call, let alone when they're seeing the gunshots go off or they're seeing the very dramatic, mangled wreck of a car, somewhere in one of the Dakotas that's flipped off the road and down in a ditch. So now we need a whole different level of trauma training when we start to actually see stuff. But you're seeing evidence of it, with that story right there. It's obviously fruitful and it's obviously going to save lives, but at the same time, it's going to create a whole new wave of trauma, in my opinion, and we've got to address that if we're going to stay ahead of it.
One thing that's good about it is that the dispatcher initiates that process. So the dispatcher sends the text message to the caller. What I was afraid of is this technology would roll out and it would be optional for the caller to just start sending me videos, sending me pictures. And I'm going to start seeing dead bodies. I'm going to start seeing mangled people, trapped people, burning people, photos of heinous crimes that I want to go through my whole life without ever having seen in my mind. That's what I'm worried about. But if a dispatcher is able to use discretion to decide, like, I bet if I could see that boat, I could help her start it. I think that's a great application for that. And as long as they can roll it out smooth, which, the government tends to do that, I guess I'm excited that I'll probably see that roll out here at some point.
Thank you. We love you. Please tell your Aunt Sally to follow us. We're still
Hit
looking
like,
for
hit
subscribers. Hit
subscribe,
the like button.
downloads.
For all of the sharks in the sea, John's glorious beard, and myself, Drew, I will say, John,
Good night, America.
stick around.